Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Good morning, everyone. Okay, we have been studying in this book, in the Buddha's words, the chapter on mastering the mind. And we've gone through all of the sections on the removal of distracting thoughts, the overcoming of the five hindrances. Okay, now we come to some sections that deal with the actual techniques or subjects of meditation. I already dealt to some extent with the meditation on loving kindness, so I'm going to skip over section 6 and come to section 7 on the Six Recollections. This is an important, or this deals with an important set of meditations which does not receive very much attention in the West, but is quite fundamental within the actual Buddhist practicing tradition. These meditations, the Six Recollections in Pali, is called the Sixth Anusati. The Pali word anusati, if we look at it carefully, we see that the stem of the word is the word sati, which is what is usually translated as mindfulness. And then the prefix anu gives the sense of repetition, and now the word sati, that's usually translated as mindfulness, originally meant remembrance, remembering. And so the word anusati can have the sense of recollection. We usually think of recollection as recalling the past, remembering something that happened in the past. And in a sense, that's implied by this word sati. But anusati, repeated remembrance, means continually bearing in mind, continually bringing back into mind, repeatedly bringing into the mind. And then the six special objects of recollection, these become the six anusatis, which is recollection of the Buddha, recollection of the Dhamma, recollection of the Sangha. Those are the three jewels of Buddhism, the three objects of Buddhist faith and devotion. And then comes the recollection of morality, or the precepts, recollection of generosity, and recollection of the devas, the deities. And now, in the sutta that we're taking, that I've included here, a member of the Sakyan clan, he was actually a cousin, maybe even a half, I think he was a cousin of the Buddha. His name is Mahanama. He comes to the Buddha, and then he asks, in what way does a noble disciple often dwell when he has arrived at the fruit and understood the teaching? Now this phrase here is very significant, the phrase, the expression, arrived at the fruit and understood the teaching. Sometimes it's believed that this practice of the recollections, that this is a relatively simple practice for those who are just primarily attracted to Buddhism in a devotional way. But here, Mahanama is asking about a disciple who has reached the fruit, which means that he's somebody who is at least at the first stage of enlightenment. Somebody who has reached the fruit of stream entry or one of the higher fruits and understood the teaching. This means not just understood the teaching intellectually, but somebody who has achieved the direct cognition, direct realization of the truth of the teaching. Okay, and then the Buddha explains to him, in answering his question, the Buddha is going to explain to him the Six Recollections. Okay, so the Buddha says, when a noble disciple has arrived at the fruit and understood the teaching, he often dwells in such a way as this. Here, the noble disciple recollects the Tathagata. The Tathagata is the Buddha thus. First, I'll just recite this formula, then I'll explain it. The Blessed One is an Arahant, perfectly enlightened, accomplished in true knowledge and conduct, fortunate, the knower of the world, unsurpassed leader of persons to be tamed, teacher of devas and humans, the Enlightened One, the Blessed One. This statement that the Buddha gives presents what are called the 9 special qualities of the Buddha, the 9 Buddha Guna. And so at the beginning, in order to practice this as a systematic meditation, is somebody looking for a seat? You could pull up a seat. There's space here. Why don't you pull up a seat here? A chair here. Okay, so in practicing this meditation, first, one has to become familiar with the meaning of the 9 qualities, the 9 Buddha Guna, or qualities of the Buddha. So we have the first of these is Arahant. Now the word Arahant was used during the time of the Buddha, even before the arising of the Buddha. It was used amongst the different spiritual schools to designate one who has reached the final goal, one whose mind has become purified of all defilements. And so within Buddhism too, the word Arahant was preserved with that meaning. It was used as a designation for one whose mind has become purified of all defilements and who has become liberated from birth, aging, and death. So the person who has achieved nirvana, nibbana, here and now, is an Arahant. Now the quality of being an Arahant is one that the Buddha shares with his disciples who achieve enlightenment through his guidance. They are all Arahants in the same sense that they have eradicated all defilements and achieved emancipation from birth and death. But the next quality is something distinctive of the Buddha, and this is the quality of being perfectly enlightened, Samma Sambuddho. It said of the disciples that they are Sambuddha sometimes, which means that they are enlightened, that they've realized the truth of the teaching. But the Buddha is one who has Anuttara Samma Sambodhi, the unsurpassed perfect enlightenment, which means that he has become, you could say that he has understood, realized all the principles of the Dhamma. all of the fundamental laws of the spiritual life. He's understood in detail, extensively in detail, and he's able to communicate them to others. In later Buddhist tradition, this quality of being perfectly enlightened comes to be equated with omniscience, having the knowledge of all phenomena. But in the early Buddhist teachings, there's no explicit, or let's say in the early canonical teachings, there's no explicit statement which ascribes omniscience to the Buddha. So it seems Buddhist tradition can't resist the temptation to ascribe omniscience to the Buddha. Okay, then the next quality, the Buddha is accomplished in true knowledge and conduct. We have actually two qualities here, or two factors which are joined together. Yeah, these two factors are vijja and charana. Vijja is what is translated as true knowledge. In Pali and in Sanskrit, we have many words for knowledge which are sometimes almost synonymous, sometimes there is just a slight difference in nuance between these words. But in the text we find this word vijja used with specific reference to certain types of knowledge. And so one particular class of knowledges, which is called vijja, is the three knowledges that the Buddha realized on the night of his enlightenment. This is the recollection of previous lives, his past existences, the divine eye with which he can see beings passing away and taking rebirth, and then the knowledge that leads to the destruction of the taints, destruction of the defilements, the knowledge of the Four Noble Truths. And then conduct here, charana, covers all the different aspects of bodily, verbal, and mental conduct of the Buddha, including his perfect observance of the precepts, the monastic precepts, the restraint of his sense faculties, his contentment with simple requisites, and also his mastery of the different domains of meditation. That's also included under conduct. Okay, then we come to the next quality. It's a word difficult to translate very precisely into English. The word is sukhita. I'm not so happy with this rendering of fortunate. It suggests that he achieved enlightenment through a stroke of good luck, which is certainly not the case. But the word sukhita means literally well gone. And so it's said that the Buddha is called sukhita in the sense that he is gone to the ultimate good, one who has attained the highest good, and one who is gone along the good path, the Noble Eightfold Path. Again, this was a quality or a term that was used among some of the other spiritual communities, but it came to be a special term used amongst the Buddhists. Okay, then the next quality, loka vidu, means knower of the world. And this is explained in three ways. That the Buddha is the knower of the world of sentient beings. That through his superior vision, he's able to see all of the different realms of existence and to see all of the different beings in these realms of existence. And with his mind, he's able to understand the different dispositions in the minds of beings, their aptitudes, their karmic formations, and so on. And so the Buddha is the knower of the world of sentient beings. And then, in the second sense, the Buddha is said to be the knower of the world, and that he's the knower of what is called the Sankhara Loka. This is the world of conditioned formation. So the Buddha can, through a superior vision, he sees the world as constituted of the five aggregates, the 12 sense bases, the 6 sense faculties and the 6 objects, the 18 elements, and he knows which of these formations belong to the sensual realm of existence, which formations belong to the realm of form, which formations belong to the formless realm. Okay, and then the third sense in which the Buddha is called the knower of the world is, we call this the knower of the world in the astronomical sense, the knower of the different world systems which are spread out through boundless space. So the knower of the earth, the planets, solar systems, galaxies. Okay, now the way I understand this formula, these first 5 qualities that have been mentioned, arhat, perfectly enlightened, accomplished in true knowledge and conduct, arhat, perfectly enlightened, accomplished in true knowledge and conduct, fortunate, knower of the world, these 5 qualities pertain primarily to the Buddha himself in his aspect of being one who is a master of knowledge and one who has achieved liberation. But now with the next quality, we have a shift in emphasis towards the Buddha as a teacher of others, one who is qualified to teach and guide others. And so the 6th quality that we have is Anuttara Purisa Dhammasarati, which means the unsurpassed leader of persons to be tamed. And so this quality emphasizes the Buddha's skill in being able to guide others, to teach them in the way that's appropriate for themselves. Through his knowledge of human nature and human beings, he's able to understand the minds of others. And then through this quality, he's able to train them, to teach them, to guide them. And so when the commentaries explain this quality, they mention some examples, like the way the Buddha tames the murderer Angulimala, one who had killed hundreds of people, and yet when the Buddha met him, the Buddha was able to subdue him and turn him into a very gentle and compassionate person who even became a monk and then an arhat. And sometimes there's a case like grief-stricken woman came to the Buddha, she lost her baby, and the Buddha was able to teach her in such a way that she could awaken to the truth of impermanence. An example is mentioned even of how the Buddha tamed the wild elephant. His wicked cousin Devadatta unleashed an intoxicated elephant that came running towards the Buddha, and everybody else was running away and pleading with the Buddha, please, please step off to the side. But this elephant kept running towards the Buddha, getting closer and closer, and the Buddha just stood there, radiating loving kindness towards the elephant. And then when the elephant came just within a few yards of the Buddha, it slowed down, stopped, and then bowed down to the Buddha. Okay, so this is how the Buddha is the unsurpassed leader of persons or beings to be tamed. Then he's the teacher of devas and humans. Those are the types of beings that he especially teaches. As a human being, of course, main field for receiving the Buddha's teaching are other human beings. But the Buddha would also teach every night. The devas, deities, would come to the Buddha from the different heavenly realms and ask the Buddha for instruction, and the Buddha would give them guidance and teaching. Okay, the next quality that's mentioned here, this is the 8th of the 9, is Buddho, which is the name by which we best know the Buddha. And the word Buddha itself, literally it means enlightened one. But I've reflected a little bit why the word Buddha should come towards the end of this list rather than towards the beginning, where we have at the beginning Sama Sambuddha, which seems to be almost identical. But this is my own personal theory. Well, it's also supported by the commentary. In that the word Buddha here doesn't mean simply one who's enlightened, but one who is an enlightener of others. So the commentary says Buddha here can be understood in the sense of Bodhi. Bodhita is based on the causative form. Correct? So it's based on the causative form to enlighten or to awaken. So Bodhita is one who enlightens others. So this is how I understand the word Buddha here. It's to be understood in the sense that the Buddha, it's not that he waves his hand and others get enlightened, but he has the ability to communicate the teaching in such a way that others will awaken to the truth. Okay, and then the 9th quality is Bhagava, which is what many people translate as the Blessed One. Bhagava is another one of those words that was used before the arising of the Buddha, and it comes to be applied to the person within any religious tradition that one regards as the supreme teacher. And so the followers of Hinduism refer to Krishna as Bhagava, and the followers of Jainism will refer to Mahavira as Bhagava, but the Buddhists refer to the Buddha as Bhagava. The word Bhagava, it has the sense of one who possesses all good, noble qualities. It doesn't suggest, as the word Blessed One might, that there is some divinity that confers blessings on the Buddha. In the commentaries, the word Bhagava is explained with a special Buddhist emphasis that the Buddha is the one who out of great compassion has fulfilled and perfected the 10 paramis, the 10 spiritual perfections. And therefore he is called Bhagava. Okay, so in the practice of this recollection of the Buddha, first one has to become familiar with these 9 qualities. And one becomes familiar with them by knowing their meaning, studying their meaning. And for a detailed account of the meanings, you can look in the VIII, chapter 7. But one also has to bear in mind that the VIII explains these qualities from the standpoint of the developed Buddhist tradition, Theravada Buddhist tradition, which evolved over a period of several hundred years. So the meanings explained in the VIII are not necessarily in complete agreement with the most ancient meanings of these words. But as one goes through these qualities within one's mind again and again, then they come to life. When one just reads them in a book, they're somewhat flat and colorless. But as one gains some understanding of the meaning, and then runs them through one's mind, they start to be filled out with color, with vivacity, with greater depth of meaning. And so they become imprinted on the mind. And in this way they generate stronger faith and devotion towards the Buddha. And then the mind starts to settle down. Okay. The mind settles down and becomes quiet and focused on these qualities. Sometimes at the beginning it can be a bit mechanical, the process of going through them. But if one persists, always trying to keep the meaning in mind, then one finds that it becomes a useful method for settling the mind. And it gives a lot of joy and inspiration. Now, the way I personally suggest doing this meditation, at the beginning, to take all 9 qualities and go through each of them, pausing could be for a little time, half a minute or so on each one, half a minute, just holding it in the mind till you become familiar with it, till you get what you might call the taste of that quality. You pick up the flavor of it until it resonates in the mind. Then move on to the next quality until you come to the end. When you come to the end, to Bhagava, the Blessed One, then go back to the beginning with Arahant, perfectly enlightened one, accomplished in true knowledge and conduct and so on. And then again go to the end. And keep on going over and over all 9 qualities. Now after you do this for some time, could be, let's say a few weeks, if you do it even 15, 20 minutes a day for a few weeks. Certain qualities will stand out as more meaningful, richer. Others will be more difficult to get a grip on. And so what you then do, at the beginning, just go through all 9 qualities at the beginning of the session. Then you pick just 3 qualities that are more prominent, that stand out more prominently. And just run through those three qualities over and over and over. So the ones, not that I want to prejudice your mode of practice, but for example, one might choose Bhagava Arahang Sama Sambuddha, the Blessed One, the worthy, the worthy one, the Arhat, the perfectly enlightened one. And then just run through those three qualities for some time. Maybe a couple of weeks focusing on the three qualities. Then after you have done the three qualities for some time, then just choose out of those three qualities, one will stand out as more prominent. Select that one quality and focus on the one quality. So it could be, for some it could be Arahang, for some it can be Bhagava, the Blessed One, for some it could be Buddho, some might like a longer designation, unsurpassed leader of persons to be tamed. It doesn't matter, but one just chooses whichever one is most prominent, and one focuses on that quality. So normally, once you choose the one quality in a session of meditation, you begin one time going through all 9 qualities, then reduce the focus to 3 qualities, a few minutes going over 3 qualities, then just choose the one quality that is more prominent and remain with that quality through the session. Okay, now the Buddha explains the benefit of this practice. When a noble disciple recollects the Tathagata thus, on that occasion his mind is not obsessed by lust, hatred, or delusion. When one has the Buddha in mind as the meditation object, then lust, hatred, delusion don't have a chance to arise and dominate the mind. And to help one focus on the Buddha as the object of meditation, one can use the Buddha image, some picture or statue of the Buddha that you find especially beautiful, inspiring, uplifting. And then as you are recollecting the quality of the Buddha, the qualities of the Buddha, you keep lightly in the mind that image, but don't feel compelled to try to visualize that image in detail. This mode of practice, it's not like, for example, in Tibetan Buddhism, where they try to do very detailed visualizations of the Buddha. You have to see the 12 petals of the lotus flower in which he's sitting. You have to see the hands in detail, the arms in detail, the facial features in detail. Not like that. Just enough to have some sense of the presence of the Buddha in front of you. And with that lightly visualized image of the Buddha, the focus of the mind should be on the qualities of the Buddha, represented by these designations. And then as you are doing this, recollecting the Buddha over and over, then lust, hatred, delusion, and other defilements don't get the chance to run over the mind. If thoughts of lust, thoughts of hatred arise, one just, again, keeps the mind on the Buddha, and those thoughts will be dispelled. Okay, so in this way the Buddha says, the mind is straight, clear, honest, upright, with the Tathagata, the Buddha, as its object. Okay, then as one is focusing on the Buddha, one gains the inspiration of the meaning, the inspiration of the Dhamma, and one gains gladness connected with the Dhamma. Okay, now this indicates the benefit that starts to occur through this meditation, that it gives an inspiration about the goal of the teaching, because one is now focused on the Buddha who represents the goal. One is inspired by the Dhamma because one is looking to the Buddha as the teacher of the Dhamma. And then the mind starts to become glad or joyful. And then when the mind becomes joyful, as this joy deepens and becomes stronger, it turns into rapture, a very, very powerful delight. Because now the mind is clearing up, it's gaining this open space free from greed, hatred, and delusion. And so now this deep wellspring of joy starts to flow into the mind. And this joy turns into rapture, and this rapture becomes uplifting. And as the rapture flows over the body and mind, the body starts to calm down and become tranquil. Then when one becomes tranquil in body, then one experiences pleasure or happiness, that's very concrete, tangible happiness. And then when the mind is happy, then it starts to become more and more concentrated, to go into samadhi, deep concentration. Okay, so then the Buddha says, this is called a noble disciple who dwells evenly amidst an uneven or unrighteous population, who dwells without affliction amidst an afflicted population, who has entered upon the stream of the Dhamma and develops recollection of the Buddha. This expression here, one who has entered upon the stream of the Dhamma, again, this is implying that this disciple is a stream enterer. But to practice this meditation, one doesn't have to be a stream enterer. Just even at our own level, we can practice this meditation, and it will build up within oneself that quality which is an essential attribute of the stream enterer. And this is unwavering, unvacillating trust or confidence in the Buddha as the supreme teacher. Okay, maybe before I go further, I'll ask whether there's any questions.
Does it lead to an absorption state?
Excuse me?
Does it lead to an absorption state in the concentration?
Oh, okay. The question is whether this meditation can lead to an absorption state. If by absorption state is meant the jhana, according to the commentaries, the recollection of the Buddha doesn't itself lead to the jhana, but it leads to a degree of concentration which is called upachara samadhi, access concentration. Because first, when doing the recollection of the Buddha, one is thinking of particular qualities, and so the mind is moving from quality to quality. And even when one chooses one quality, but one is still focusing on the meaning of that quality. Now, even though the recollection of the Buddha by itself might not lead to the jhana, but by enabling the mind to go to a deep level of concentration, a level of access concentration, it makes it easier to move on to another meditation object, which will lead to the jhana. For example, after gaining access concentration with recollection of the Buddha, one could then move into something like mindfulness of breathing, and it becomes much easier to develop jhana based on mindfulness of breathing. Did you have a question? Okay, please.
This practice that you're describing seems to combine Tikambana Pahana and Siddhanta Pahana. Overcoming by substituting the opposite,
Yeah.
or by filling the mind with your object of focus.
Yeah. Did you say Tikambana Pahana? Okay.
And so I'm wondering if you could parcel that out. Tell us which part is which and how.
Okay, this is a rather technical distinction.
I'm sorry if that's an inappropriate question.
No, it's not inappropriate. It's just that it's a bit technical. Okay, but I'll answer it. Okay, he's referring to a distinction that's made in commentaries. It's an important and interesting distinction between different ways in which defilements are eliminated. One is called Tadanga Pahana, is what we translate sometimes as abandoning by factor substitution, or abandoning in a particular respect. So this is what is meant by this term, is the elimination of defilements through developing a quality which is specifically opposed to that defilement. So for example, if I'm getting angry, or somebody is provoking me to get angry, then I develop loving kindness towards that person just on the spur of the moment. And then I eliminate that anger through this development of loving kindness. Or if the mind is becoming lustful, then I will reflect on the nature of the body is being made up of these different unattractive components, and then that directly opposes the sensual lust. Okay, so when one practices the recollection of the Buddha, this recollection is not opposed to a particular defilement, but because the qualities of the Buddha are very sublime, lofty, inspiring, they drive out lust, hatred, and delusion, so that thoughts of lust, hatred, and delusion don't have the chance to arise. So in this way you could say that recollection of the Buddha is functioning in the mode of Tadanga Pahana. You're taking a wholesome object and using it to eliminate unwholesome qualities of mind. Then what's called Vikambana Pahana, this means abandoning or eliminating defilements by suppression. And this is what takes place most distinctly in the jhana. Here one is not aiming to eliminate any particular defilement, but one is just aiming to concentrate the mind by choosing the beneficial subject of meditation. And then as the mind becomes more and more concentrated on the object, all of the defilements get pushed down and suppressed. This is compared to it's like a man who comes to a pool of water wanting to drink, and the pool of water is overrun by different types of water plants. And so in order to get the clear water with his hands, he pushes away the water plants and so there's only the clear water to drink from. Okay, so when one practices a recollection of the Buddha, at the beginning, what is operative is the kind of tad-anga bahana, turning the attention to the qualities of the Buddha, to the image of the Buddha. One is preventing lust, thoughts of lust, hatred, and delusion from coming into the mind. And whenever such thoughts arise, one just brings the mind back to the Buddha, the qualities of the Buddha, and those thoughts and the recollection will push those unwholesome thoughts away. But as one's mind becomes more and more deeply concentrated on the Buddha, then lust, hatred, and delusion don't get any chance to arise. They go into a state of suspension. And in that sense, we could say that this is the case of abandoning, eliminating by suppression the Kambana Bahana.
You had mentioned that the Buddha is the teacher of gods and men,
Yeah.
and that he taught the devas at night. Is there any reason to believe that there are deva teachers of the Dharma? If the commentaries ever mention that.
That there are devas who teach the Dhamma?
Yes.
I believe that there are, yeah, I would say so.
Has there been a sutra where one was mentioned, or a monk is reborn in one of those worlds?
Yeah, in fact there are some sutras where Saksa, who is the king of the gods, is seen teaching the Dhamma to the devas. And then I think that there's a sutra which mentions that this is a sutra which is praising the benefits that come from memorizing the teachings. And then one of the benefits is that it might be the case that one is reborn in the Deva world, and when one is reborn there, then the teachings, one is memorized, occur to the mind again. And when they occur to the mind, then one is able to recite them, and then other Devas come to listen to them. I think this is on Sutta Nikaya 4, number 194. Yes, please.
I'm just curious, is there any etymological relation between Sugata and the words in the Heart Sutra, Gata?
Okay, whether there's an etymological relationship between the word Sugata and the words in the Heart Sutra, at the end of the Heart Sutra, Gate. The word gate that's used there is the same past participle that occurs in Sugata. The past participle is gata, which is based on the verb gatati, to go. So it means gone. So Sugata is well gone. And then the closing mantra or dharani at the end of the Heart Sutra, the word gate also means gone. In that case, paragati, gone to the far shore. Further questions? Okay, then we'll move on to the next recollection. This is recollection of the Dhamma. Okay, so under the recollection of the Buddha we have 9 qualities. Under the recollection of the Dhamma we have 6 qualities are mentioned. So the Dhamma is well expounded by the Blessed One. So this is the first quality, that it's well expounded. And this refers to the Dhamma as text or scripture. Then the following 5 qualities refer to the Dhamma as the object of realization. Sometimes we have a distinction made in the text between 2 senses of the word Dhamma. both are built up around the stem Dhamma, which again means going. We have many words in Pali, Sanskrit built up around the stem meaning going. And so agama means what has come down. When you have the prefix a, it reverses the direction of the movement from going to coming. So agama is what has come down. You might call this heritage, the tradition. And technically then it refers to the collection of discourses spoken by the Buddha. So this is one sense of Dhamma. The other sense is adhigama. Adhigama is what one finds or discovers. So this is the Dhamma, you could say, as object of realization. The Dhamma as the truth to be realized, and Dhamma as the experience of realization, the experience of discovery. So when we do the recollection of the Dhamma, the first recollection is, or the first quality of recollection is recollecting that the teachings given by the Buddha are well expounded. As the sutta says, they're good in the beginning, good in the middle, good in the end. But the next 5 qualities refer to adhigama, that is, to the Dhamma of realization, the Dhamma of discovery. So this Dhamma is sanditthiko, it's directly visible, something that one can see for oneself in this present life. It's akaliko, which means literally not concerned with time. So here I translate it as immediate, in the sense that it brings immediate fruits, immediate benefits. That is, when one practices the Dhamma, one gets benefit from it immediately. It's not like one has to wait over a long time to get the benefits. And then it's also immediate in the sense that it's something that one can see in this present life. This is very similar to directly visible. Then the next quality is ehipassiko, which is translated inviting one to come and see. The word ehi means come, and passa means see. So it's something that seems to be inviting, come and see it, come and investigate for oneself. In other words, the Dhamma is open to investigation. And then as one investigates, practices, then one sees the truth of the teaching. Okay, the next quality, opanayako. It's a little obscure, but I base this rendering on an explanation in the commentary that it's worthy of application, that it's something that can be applied to oneself, and that is worth applying to oneself. When one applies it to oneself, then it brings benefit. Okay, and then the last one is paccatang veditabo vinyuhi. It's something to be personally experienced, personally understood, personally realized by the wise. So the word Pachyatang indicates that each one has to realize the truth of the teaching by himself, by herself. That it's not something that somebody else can realize for one, but one has to do it oneself. And then the type of person who realizes the teaching is the Vinyu, which doesn't necessarily mean that one already has a great amount of wisdom, but it means it's an intelligent person, a thoughtful person, a person with some degree of discernment, understanding. Okay, so these are the 6 qualities that come under recollection of the Dhamma. And similarly, one could practice this recollection of the Dhamma using the same method that one uses for recollection of the Buddha. That is, one begins with 6 qualities, all 6 qualities. One can then narrow them down to 3. And then of the 3 qualities, choose one which stands out most distinctly and choose that one quality. But I should mention that the 6 recollections that are given here, the one which is most popular and most widely used in Buddhist countries is the recollection of the Buddha. You were nodding your head when I said the one that's most commonly used.
I was just thinking the recollection of the Dhamma. They say the Buddha's the Dhamma, so.
Yeah. I think maybe Western intellectuals who come to Buddhism think the Dhamma will be most widely used. But in fact, in Buddhist countries, the most prominent, tone of Buddhist practice is devotional, and the most readily accessible object of devotion is the Buddha, because one tends to experience devotion towards another human being. And so we have a set of 4 meditations which in the Theravada tradition, which are called the 4 protective meditations: Buddhanusati, Metta, Subha, Maranasati. So the first is recollection of the Buddha, then comes loving kindness, then comes the mindfulness of the body, the unattractive nature of the body, and then the mindfulness of death. But anyway, there are people who are drawn more towards the recollection of the Dhamma, and they can proceed in the same way, narrowing down from 6 qualities to 3 qualities, and then choosing one quality and focusing on that. And then the rest, the procedure that follows, is the same as in recollection of the Buddha. Okay, so now we go on to the 3rd recollection. This is recollection of the Sangha. And what is meant by the word Sangha here? Now, in ordinary usage, Buddhist usage, the word Sangha, in a traditional Buddhist country, the word Sangha refers to the monastic order, to those who have received the formal monastic ordination. But what is meant here by the Sangha as the 3rd jewel, the 3rd object of recollection, is not the monastic Sangha, but what is called the Savaka Sangha. This is the community, the spiritual community of all those who have achieved penetration of the truth of the Dhamma. In other words, those from the stage of stream entry, or actually the path of stream entry, upwards. I will explain these different groups as we go through the formula. Okay, so we have a formula here with actually 9 components. So it said the Sangha of the Blessed One's disciples is practicing the good way, Supatipanno, practicing the straight way, Utupatipanno, practicing the true way, the proper way, practicing the true way, Nyayapatipanno, practicing the proper way, Sammitipatipanno. I don't know whether there's any real difference in meaning of these expressions. The original words might have subtle nuances, subtle differences in nuance, but I think that they're just alternative ways of stating basically the same thing. But I didn't look at the commentary again, but I think the commentary will try to find, this is the way commentators work, that they try to find subtle differences in meaning in order to have something to fill out their text. I sometimes say the way to become a commentator is to give elaborate explanations, but to leave a few points unclear. So that means that you'll get one of your students become your sub-commentator, and he'll explain it, leaving a few points unclear, so he could appoint somebody from among his students to become a sub-commentator. So we first have these 4 ways of describing the Sangha, and then we have the mention of what is meant here by the Sangha of the Blessed One's disciples. They are the 4 pairs of persons, or the 8 types of individuals. So who are these 4 pairs of persons? They are the stream enterer and the person on the way to stream entry. The once returner, the person on the way to once returning, the non-returner, and the person on the way to non-returning, and the arhat, and the person on the way to arhatship. First, the stream enterer. This is the person at the first stage of enlightenment, the one who has penetrated the truth of the Dhamma, and by penetrating the truth of the Dhamma, is assured of taking only at most 7 more rebirths, either in the celestial world or in the human world. And then before the stage of stream entry, there's a stage where one enters upon the path to stream entry, which means that one is bound to reach the fruit of stream entry in this life itself. So that is the first pair of persons. Okay, then the second stage of liberation, the stage of enlightenment, is the stage of the once returner. The once returner is somebody who has gone further in his practice than the stream enterer and has reduced the defilements to such a degree that he or she will take rebirth only one more time, either in the celestial world or again in the human world. I smile because I remember the commentaries explain the once returner in a way which means that he might actually come back 2 more times. That is, if he takes rebirth in the heavenly world, he might come back to the human world. If he takes rebirth in the human world, he might take rebirth in the heavenly world, and then achieve final liberation from there. And I think there's also a possibility, no, maybe not. Okay, but the general rule seems to be that one takes rebirth 1 more time, and achieves final liberation from that state. And that one rebirth will be either in a heavenly realm or in the human realm. The third stage at the third stage of enlightenment, one reduces or cuts off all of the defilements that bind one to the sensual realm of existence. But one has not yet fully eradicated the craving for renewed existence. And so the person who becomes the non-returner, the one at the third stage of enlightenment, never comes back to the sensual realm of existence, not to the human realm, not even to the sensual heavenly realm. But the non-returner takes rebirth in the form realm or the formless realm, one of the super celestial realms, and then attains final liberation from that realm, in that realm. And then there comes a certain stage as one is practicing where one enters the path to non-returning, so that one is bound to reach the stage of non-returning within that life. So this is the third pair. And then the person at the fourth stage of enlightenment is the arahant. That is the person who has eradicated all of the fetters, all of the defilements, and will no longer take rebirth anywhere. Someone who is completely free from the cycle of rebirth. And then there comes in one's practice a certain stage where one enters the path to arhatship, which means that one's mind becomes determined in such a way that one is bound to reach arhatship within that life itself. So that is the fourth pair. So these are the four pairs of persons, and the four pairs make 8 individuals, 8 types of individuals. So those are the individuals who constitute the Buddha's Savaka Sangha, the community of noble ones, the noble community. And then it said that the Sangha of the Blessed One's disciples is worthy of gifts, worthy of hospitality. I remember when I was in Sri Lanka, somebody had written this as worthy of hospitalization. Worthy of being of hospitality means worthy of being hospitalized, worthy of hospitalization. Okay. Worthy of offering, worthy of reverential salutation. Again, these terms almost synonymous. I can't see very much difference between them. Then this Sangha is the unsurpassed field of merit for the world, which means that gifts and offerings made to the Sangha of the noble disciples gives the greatest amount of merit that leads to long life, good health, beauty, wealth, and also the greatest capacity for spiritual progress. Okay, then the continuation of this is similar to the others. Maybe at this point I'll pause again and ask whether there's any questions on recollection of Dhamma, recollection of the Sangha. Yes?
I had one question on the recollection of the Dhamma.
Yes.
The word, the translation for akaliko. In In the translation that we had received at Forest Refuge, and this might just be a different way of rendering it, they translated it as unaffected by time, giving the sense of that it's not conditioned by the particularity of the situation. Time is always true.
Yeah.
Which seems to be a somewhat different connotation than bringing immediate benefit.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if you could say something about that.
I think I've looked into this meaning of akaliko pretty carefully to see the way it's used and the sense that I get. I'm trying to think of my grounds for justifying this. But I think I've seen this contrasted with teaching that is said to be a matter of time and that one has to wait for some time to get the benefit. In order to justify my explanation, I would have to go back. Or to justify my translation, I'd have to go back and start searching for passages. I don't have them immediately in mind.
I mean, I don't know either way. I'm just, I don't know where they got their translations from either. But I'm just mentioning that, that as a beginner, that's what I got used to. And it's fine.
I mean, if it clicks with you, then just continue to use it.
They're both good.
Yeah.
Who are these people that are entered into the path of stream entry? I would have thought it was just one thought moment away.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, this is an interesting question because I didn't bring this matter up because it's a rather technical matter. In the systematization of the teaching, which one finds in the commentaries, which in turn are based on the Abhidhamma systematization of the teaching, the path is considered to be a single momentary experience. It's an experience, kind of breakthrough experience that takes place at a single thought moment. And then it's followed immediately by the fruition experience, an experience called fruition, which consists of 2 or 3 thought moments in which one experiences the bliss of Nibbana. And so within the Abhidhamma commentarial system, one speaks about the moment, Sotapatti Maggacitta, the single thought moment, which is the path of stream entry. So one is a person on the path of stream entry just for one thought moment. And one thought moment that's within the snap of a finger, it says that there are millions of thought moments go by. So one becomes a person on the path of stream entry just for a very small fraction of the snap of a finger. And that's immediately followed by the stage of fruition, when one experiences the fruit of stream entry just for a few thought moments. And then this goes for the other 4 stages as well. Each stage of realization consists of one moment of path, one thought moment, followed immediately by 2 or 3 moments of fruition. Now, when one looks in the older suttas, one doesn't find the presentation of path and fruit done in that way. Again, this is a rather technical matter, but one doesn't even find the word path being used to indicate a temporary experience, but it's said simply that one gains the path or enters the path, and then one develops that path, and as one does so, one proceeds all the way up to the stage of final realization. And now in the suttas, one finds some passages, for example, where a householder is saying that he makes offerings to a person who's an arhat, he makes offerings to a person who's a non-returner, he makes offerings to a person who's a once-returner, he makes offerings to somebody who is a stream enterer, and he makes offerings to somebody who is on the path to stream entry. Now, if the path was just a single thought moment like that, it wouldn't be possible for somebody to make offerings to somebody who is just on the path to stream entry for less time than the snap of a finger.
But is there a distinction how someone would know? I'd like to think I'm on the path to stream entry, even if it takes 99 more years.
The fullest statement that I'm aware of comes in Samyutta Nikaya, chapter 25, beginning with sutta number 1. And it distinguishes, actually I'm going to get into that in the last chapter of this book, but okay, I'll do it very briefly now. In fact, I think I have that passage in the book, so we could just briefly look at it. Yeah, it's on page 393. Okay, now the person who's on this path to stream entry is distinguished into, there are two types who enter the path to stream entry. They are distinguished as, one is called the faith follower, the other is called the Dhamma follower. I'll write the Pali words on the board. Okay, now this passage that we have on page 393 explains how one becomes a faith follower and how one becomes a Dhamma follower. The faith follower is the Sadhanusari. The text begins that the I is impermanent, changing, undergoing alteration. Same with the ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind. So they're all impermanent, always changing. So then it says, one who places faith in these teachings and resolves on them thus is called a faith follower, Sadhanusari. Then this is one who has entered the sixth course of rightness, samatha niyamam. Which means that the sixth course of rightness means that this person has entered upon the truly noble eightfold path. That's the path which is going directly to the extinction of suffering. So entered the plane of superior persons. These are the plane of the noble persons, and transcended the plane of the worldlings. So this person has gone beyond the plane of the ordinary person. He's entered upon the plane of the superior persons, the noble ones. Then it says, he is incapable of doing any deed by reason of which he might be reborn in hell, in the animal realm, or in the domain of the afflicted spirit. It's sometimes translated as a hungry ghost. So this person cannot be reborn in the three bad realms. And then it says he is incapable of passing away without having realized the fruit of stream entry. So this is the sutta teaching, is that the fruit has to be realized within the same life, but it doesn't say that he's going to realize the fruit immediately in the next thought moment. So when the commentary comes to a passage like this, then it has to explain it in a roundabout way. Okay, so this is the faith follower, and I think when it says that the mark of this person is that he places faith in these teachings and resolves on them, thus it doesn't mean that, the way I understand it, it doesn't mean that the person just hears these teachings and then accepts them out of faith and then goes about his everyday life in an ordinary way. The way I understand it is that these teachings, they have to be realized with insight, with wisdom. But what motivates this person, the driving force in this person's spiritual life, is faith in, say, the Buddha as the teacher, faith in the Dhamma as the true teaching. And it's that faith that motivates the person to practice and to develop mindfulness, concentration, wisdom, to the degree that he can penetrate this truth of the impermanence of the six senses. Okay, the other person, this is the Dhammanusari, the Dhamma follower, is one who, the way I see it, whose motivating force is the drive to understand, the wish to see the truth. And so the text describes this person, one for whom these teachings or these principles, the impermanence of the six senses, are accepted thus after being pondered to a sufficient degree with wisdom. This is called the Dhamma follower. Again, he's one who has entered the fixed course of rightness and so on, one who is incapable of passing away without having realized the fruit of stream entry. So these are the two types of persons who enter upon the path. One is dominated by the faith faculty, the other is dominated by the wisdom faculty. But then the text concludes, one who knows and sees these teachings thus is called a stream enterer, no longer bound to the lower world, fixed in destiny, with enlightenment as his destination. Okay, so the stream enterer is the one who, after entering upon the fixed course of rightness, entering upon the path, then reaches this direct knowledge and vision of the teaching, of the truth of the teaching. And with that, he gains the other qualities, no longer bound to rebirth in the lower world, being fixed in destiny, fixed, with bound to reach full enlightenment. Any further questions on?
Sorry, I think about the four different pairs. If I sort of look at it in reverse order, it would seem that the stream enterer, after I guess sixth rebirth, would become a once returner. And the once returner, when he returns, would he not at that point also become one who is on his way to arahantship?
We have to understand it this way, that when a person becomes a stream enterer, it's not necessarily the case that he's not going to go any further in that life itself. Somebody can become a stream enterer and then continue to practice very diligently, and by practicing very diligently can even achieve arhatship within that same life. If he doesn't reach arhatship, he might reach once return or non-return within that life. And when it says that the stream enterer has at most 7 lives, even as a stream enterer, there might be fewer lives. So it's not the case that one has to go sequentially through all of these, extending them all out the maximum duration.
And this says qualifier at most.
Yeah, maybe I didn't. Maybe I.
I don't know. You may well have.
I think I would have said it.
Probably didn't.
Yeah.
Probably did. And then also then on the once returner, he has just to rid himself of all of the defilements, remaining defilements.
The once returner.
The once returner. I think you said he has eradicated or reduced
Yeah.
the defilements. So
Yeah.
the once returner does still have possibly some defilements.
Yeah. At this point, I haven't yet discussed. I just want to bring in the question of which defilements are eliminated at which stage. Then I won't have anything to teach when we come through. But if you want to see, I think I included a table. Did I include a table in this? No, maybe there's no table. 335. Right, it's in the 375. Right, my memory did not make this correct. Yeah, if you want to see which defilements are eliminated at which stage, it's shown in the table on page 375. Okay, I want to move on so that we finish this section today. So we come now to the fourth recollection. This is the recollection of one's own moral discipline. And this is particularly appropriate for one who has reached the stage of stream entry, because it's said that for a stream enterer, his sila, his virtues become unbreakable, that he's endowed with the unbreakable precepts. So he recollects, I possess the moral virtues dear to the noble ones, unbroken, untorn, unblemished, unmottled. Again, all of these words, more or less synonymous, maybe subtle differences and nuance between them. They are freeing, they lead to liberation, they're praised by the wise, they're ungrasped. This is an important qualification in that he doesn't cling to these virtues thinking, I am virtuous, but grasping them with the view that just observing the precepts alone is sufficient to bring liberation. And then they are samadhi sangvataniko. Samadhi sangvataniko. They lead to samadhi, to concentration. So this recollection is recommended especially for the noble disciple because he possesses these virtues, so he observes these virtues so strongly that he won't break them or violate them. But even if one is not a noble disciple, one could do this recollection of the precepts, just recollecting the precepts that one has taken, and if one is observing them perfectly, observing them diligently, then one can rejoice in these precepts, thinking, for example, that I undertake the precept of not destroying life so that I don't kill any other living being, that I don't inflict harm on any other living being, that I observe the precept not stealing so I don't take anything that belongs to others. I observe the precepts of abstaining from sexual misconduct so I don't succumb to temptation to violate or disrupt the relationships of others. I observe the precepts of abstaining from false speech so whatever I communicate will be true and reliable. And when one reflects in this way on one's precepts, then it gives a joy and delight to the mind, because one knows that one's conduct is pure and clear. And then as one continues to dwell on the precepts in this way, then this joy and delight lead step by step to samadhi, to concentration. The fifth recollection is the recollection of generosity. And this is recommended, of course, particularly for the lay disciples, since they are the ones who make the offerings that support the Sangha. So the lay disciple recollects, it is a gain for me, it is well gained by me, or it is fortunate for me, that in a population obsessed by the stain of stinginess or miserliness, I dwell at home with a mind devoid of the stain of stinginess, freely generous, open-handed, delighting in relinquishment, one devoted to charity, delighting in giving and sharing. And this recollection has special meaning within the context of the Buddha's own time, since all of the different monastic communities and ascetic communities depended upon donations from the lay community for their material support. Whether it was the Buddhist monks, the Jain ascetics, the Ajivakas, any of the other spiritual communities, they would all live lives of mendicant wandering. So they would travel from town to town, village to village, and each day they would go amongst the houses to the lay community with their alms bowls to receive offerings of food, sometimes medicine. And thus it became, we call it a mutually beneficial relationship developed between lay people, the householders, and the monastic communities, whereby the lay people would provide the monastics with their material requisites, and monastics would provide lay people with teachings of the Dhamma. It could be teachings of the shared Dhamma, that basically all of the spiritual communities shared in common, teachings, generally teachings like karma and its fruits, the blessings of generosity, certain common ethical observances, or in the case of the Buddhist monks, Buddhist nuns, they would teach the teachings specific to the Buddha. And so for this reason, the Buddha praised generosity as a virtue, a quality, which led to this, we call it a kind of economy of gifts, instead of an economy based on the pursuit of self-interest, with the idea that the invisible hand of the market is going to establish everything in a healthy balance. But the two divisions of the society, the community of renunciants and the lay community, support each other. The lay community with material gifts, the renunciants with spiritual teaching. Okay, and so the lay person who generously supports the monastics, whether Buddhist or the other communities, can then reflect on his or her generosity, thinking that I am one who dwells freely generous, open-handed, delighting in relinquishment, devoted to charity, delighting in giving and sharing. And then as one reflects on one's generosity, then joy arises, and then as that joy becomes stronger, it leads to samadhi. Then finally we come to the sixth recollection, which is the recollection of the devas. Now this might have been a common practice during the Buddha's time, that people would call to mind the devas the deities, and they would arouse feelings of devotion towards the devas, and maybe make sacrifices to them and offerings to them. And it seems to me that the Buddha took this type of practice but changed the mode in which it was practiced, almost turned it 180 degrees on its swivel. The way the recollection of the devas is practiced in the Buddhist mode, it's not that one thinks of these great deities in order to feel devotion towards the deities, but rather one thinks of the qualities that led the devas to be reborn in the heavenly realm, and then one thinks that I myself possess the same qualities that they possess, by reason of which they were reborn in those heavenly realms. So why do beings get to be reborn in the heavenly realms as devas? Because they have certain good, worthy qualities that conduce to rebirth in the heavenly realms. And so here the Buddha mentions his 5 qualities. 5 qualities: faith, morality, learning, generosity, and wisdom. And so it's because of those qualities that the devas have been reborn in the deva world. And now, when one has these qualities within oneself, then one can reflect on them and think that I have these qualities that belong to the deva world. Not in order to boost one's pride, but in order to give a sense of joy to the mind. And then as one reflects on these qualities, again, the mind is not overrun by greed, hatred, and delusion. The mind becomes straight, then joy arises, greater calmness settles down, the mind becomes calm, happiness arises, and then the mind becomes concentrated in samadhi. And so then the Buddha concludes and says, a noble disciple who has arrived at the fruit and understood the teaching often dwells in just this way. Okay, now I'll ask whether there's any questions. Yes?
One thing you said that one who has accomplished stream entry, they are firmly established in the precepts,
Right.
in the morals. So, I was thinking that if one is interested in Dharma, or if one has firmly realized that this is the path leading to the best well-being of yourself, then one has entered stream, because to be firmly established in precept and not to break any precept, to me, it's like an unimaginative situation. I would end up breaking one or the other precept and the one or the other situation.
Yeah.
You know, it's like never to say hard words. I say hard words 10 times a day.
Actually, not speaking harsh words is not one of the precepts.
It's not?
No. It's one of the causes of wholesome karma, but it's not one of the precepts. The precept is to abstain from false speech.
Okay, so if you're not lying, then you are following the precept.
Right.
Okay.
Not that I'm encouraging harsh speech.
I was thinking because we meditate and we try to have a mindful mind.
Yeah.
You lose it in the chunk of the day somewhere, and you do unmindful actions.
Yeah.
You might not be still unmindful, but just being at work, being with family, interacting with people, you lose the mindfulness somewhere.
Of course, that happens.
So does it mean that we are not stream enters?
Well, attaining stream entry is a special attainment.
Okay.
And when one achieves stream entry, it's said that one observes these precepts which are unbroken, unblemished, and so on. As long as one is sort of preparing to achieve stream entry, one should of course try to observe the precepts as carefully as possible. Naturally, through our human weakness, there could come times where we might infringe on the precepts in a small, maybe to a small degree, but one should certainly try to avoid the grosser infractions of the precepts. And as one becomes more mindful, then one could also be more scrupulous in one's observance, even of the minor infractions of the precepts.
Okay, so stream entry is something that you attain being on the path. It's not just the belief that this is the path and this is what you
Right.
do.
It's not just that when one decides that one is going to follow the Buddha's Dhamma, that one is automatically a stream enterer.
Okay, thank you for that.
Okay, please.
What is meant by his mind is straight and then path in a straight way?
Yeah, it's the same word. It's used uju. Excuse me? Yeah, uju. The word is uju. Uju. In the case of the Sangha, it's uju patipanna. In the case of the mind, it's, I think, uju gata, gone straight. It suggests what I would call a sense of righteousness, of being, maybe a sense of integrity, of being straight in one's conduct, having one's conduct agree with one's words agree with one's conduct. Yeah.
What is an uneven population?
I think here the word visama suggests unrighteous. Perhaps that's a better translation.
That makes sense. May I have the second question?
Yeah.
There's some kind of puzzle here because it seems to me that it's talking about strengthening the ethical component of the practice, which even though it seems to be fundamental, it doesn't seem to be required for samadhi. And I'm talking about broadening, as if you don't really need generosity. You don't need to have the Buddha's ability to teach to become a stream enter, or to enter samadhi, which supports the stream entry, the insight. But so it seems to me that it's talking about speaking to householders who have at least entered the stream. So this name is for householders, right? It didn't talk about monks.
Yeah.
So it seems to me that the Buddha is telling us householders who are gaining stream entry to broaden your morality, to broaden your moral consciousness. But at the end, so when the Buddha gave his teaching, at the end he would say, then the benefit is to be glad and to have the tranquility, and then to reach a more concentrated mind. But it seems to me as having a higher moral is to help others, to further broaden our practice. But why would the end benefit be guilt to oneself? This seems to be a very puzzling system. If the benefit is to be more concentrated, why don't we just practice dhyana? Why do we have to go through this roundabout way of thinking it's just, all the trick seems to me is to bring up this moral, a broadening of moral sense, not a basic personal morality. But at the end it's about being more concentrated in mind. This seems to be it's contradictory in itself.
Okay. We say that the final goal of the teaching is liberation. And in order to gain liberation, one has to strengthen the faculty of samadhi. First, to gain liberation, one needs panya, which is wisdom. And to gain wisdom, one needs samadhi, concentration. And so the Buddha is giving, the way I see it, he's giving this teaching to a householder, or to householders in general, but especially to stream enterers, to give them certain themes of recollection, themes to focus the mind upon, in order to strengthen the faculty of samadhi, so that they can use that strengthened faculty of samadhi as a basis for stronger wisdom, and then use that wisdom to propel them further along the way to liberation.
But they don't need it. According to the rest of the teaching, this is unnecessary. There's only one phrase I think it makes sense. That is to have an even mind among, an even population, a mind of even population among uneven population. That makes sense to me, because then we become the pillar of society. When the population is immoral, we bring morality. That's the only phrase that makes sense to me as the end goal. Everything else needs to be achievable through all the other, seems to be better, straightforward practice of dhyana. And inside, we're focusing on impermanence, the everyday, the sense basis. It would be much more straightforward for the end game than this method.
I would say that the methods that are taught aiming at the jhanas, like mindfulness of breathing, the four foundations of mindfulness, of course they can be practiced either by monastic person or by lay person, but they're originally designed for those who have taken a monastic way of life. Now with these practices, the Buddha is taking certain qualities which would be more natural towards the householder life. Devotion, especially using like devotion towards the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, and then recollection on one's observance of precepts, generosity, the devas. So these are qualities that are more congenial more congenial for a householder to use as a basis. Let's say these are qualities which are more familiar and more congenial to a householder. Now the Buddha is taking these qualities and showing how they can be used as a basis for strengthening samadhi and then going on from samadhi to wisdom and liberation.
Right, to a non-human, to a worldly, it makes sense. But to a noble disciple, like us.
Well, because the noble disciple already has unshakable confidence in the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, and already has the flawless observance of the precepts. And the noble disciple also is inclined to generosity. And so the noble disciple has these qualities, but without guidance like this will not be using them, will not know how to use them as a basis for strengthening the samadhi. But the instructions here give the practical advice on how to channel these, to take up these qualities and then channel them in a direction leading to stronger samadhi. Okay, let us take back here. Use the microphone.
The whole teaching, probably more focused on the cause and effect, Bodhi, practicing the good things, and those has no feeling, no feeling, all those as a base that would say that go more, practice the samadhi or concentration. And because if we ignore all those causes, then we, the result is that it will be not right, or go to a different role or something like that.
Yeah, this is the point that I've made earlier, that the practice, in fact, we discussed this in the chapter on the gradual teaching, that the teaching builds up in stages. So one begins with the ethical teaching and develops these teachings like generosity, observance of the precepts, and then that provides the basis for developing the more inward qualities of samadhi and wisdom. Okay, I'll take one more question now, and then we'll adjourn for the lunch, and then come back at 12 o'clock.
Is it an oversimplification to say what you're speaking of? It's almost like you have a cook and you have a waiter, the cook being the monastic and the waiter being the householder. Both have their jobs to do, but we obviously, it's a very efficient system to work together to deliver a better quality for all sentient beings, all of us, including the waiter. And by working together, it's actually a more efficient system than just saying, why bother? The householder can attempt to mimic what the cook is doing, and the cook can attempt to be the waiter at the same time. Is that completely off and oversimplified, or? It seems like a highly cooperative rapport.
Yeah, I think it's a good analogy.
You've warned me that similes
Excuse me?
You've warned that similes can be very rocky.
Yeah. But still, I think it's a suitable simile. Except that, let us see, cook, but you were bringing in both cook, waiter, and
in the end, we are serving ourselves. You could. I don't want to. The serving is also for the cook and the waiter, but also, if you wanted, for all sentient beings. Things that are not part of the.
That's not a teaching here, though. It's not teaching about for the good of all sentient beings. It's about for gladdening ourselves, get tranquility, and more focused mind. Never said anything about for the good of all sentient beings.
Then I guess the simile is if there's only a cook and only a waiter, it's still very efficient. That's serving.
Only waiter.
Yeah, but also don't forget this.
Then the waiter is still serving themselves best.
This isn't a comprehensive account of the Buddha's teaching, but it's a teaching which is just given for a specific purpose under particular conditions, which is explaining how a disciple who has arrived at the Buddha and understood the teaching often dwells, and this is explaining how such a disciple dwells, but it also is giving, you call it, prescriptive advice on methods that one can use for developing samadhi. Okay, we will pause now, and then if you want to go up to the dining hall, you can go to the lunch now. I will have to go, and then come back here about 12 o'clock, a little after 12, then we can have a little further discussion. Okay, so we end with the sharing of the merits. Share the merits of our teachings, the devas, the deities, the nagas, the dragon spirits, the bhutas, the spirit spirits, asking them to rejoice in the merits and protect the world, protect the Dhamma, and protect ourselves and others. Akasata Chumata Deva Naga Nirvika Punyantam Anumodisa Sivam Rakantu Sasana Akasata Chumata Deva Naga Nirvika Punyantam Anumodisa Sivam Rakantu Desanam Akasata Chumata Deva Naga Nirvika Punyantam Anumodisa Sivam Rakantu Mantaram Hey Tavatatam Hey Sampadam Punya Sampadam Sabhe Devanumodantu Sabha Sampati Siddhya. Let's go to it. Sabhe Bhutanumodantu Sabha Sampati Siddhya. Sabhe Satanumodantu Sabha Sampati Siddhya. Bhavarupadaya Vishihitato Ekantare Satataya Bhakana Rupaya Rupita Pasanya Samino, Dukkha Pamutantu, Pusantu Nibbuttu.